Welcome to Blue Dirt, the podcast that digs deep into the foundation of commercial real estate investing. Unlike most real estate shows that focus on deal making and market trends, Blue Dirt gets into the nuts and bolts of what truly builds long-term value, the building itself. We break down how to spot deferred maintenance before it costs you, why a solid preventative maintenance program is a game changer, and how triple net leases can maximize your investment returns. We'll also explore the importance of strong landlord-tenant relationships and how they drive stability and growth in your portfolio. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, Blue Dirt gives you the practical knowledge to make smarter, more profitable decisions in commercial real estate. It's time to get your hands dirty and build value from the ground up. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Blue Dirt podcast, where even idiots can make a killing in commercial real estate. Today, Don and I are going to talk about the two questions we want to answer. What is a condo as it relates to commercial real estate? And then how do you navigate the HOA owners to improve that property? So, Don, without further ado.
That's great questions. I don't feel like I have a good answer.
Well, we may not have good answers, but we have experience and we can at least share our experiencing with you. So here's the setup. So first of all, how did we come across this asset? I was working with a few ladies that wanted to break off on their own and start an esthetician type business, where they're doing injectables and, health and beauty. So we were looking at different properties, and they actually discovered this property. It was a doctor that owned these 4 medical office condos right on the property of one of our major hospitals in Pensacola. So from my perspective, great location. And I share with people that, listen, if you find something that you like and you can't afford it, we can buy it and lease it back to you. Or we can always outfit a variety of ways to make it work for you, if that's what you so deem necessary. So anyways, so these ladies actually knew this doctor and knew that she was about to retire. She's been in the same building for 40 years. Kind of impressive.
Yeah. And you could see the evolution when you got in there, where they had started in one place and how it had kind of evolved. So yeah, they had been in there a while.
Got to talk a little closer. So
can you hear me now?
No, I
okay.
can't.
You can't? You still can't?
No, still can't, but that's okay.
You don't want to hear it.
So anyways, I reach out to the doctor and went and saw the property. Personally, I loved it. Now, Don will talk to you a little bit about what physically it looked like and everything else, but from a pure dollars and cents standpoint, made sense. So what was really interesting about this property is I'm pretty excited about it, and I'm trying to reach back out to these ladies because it was their deal. It wasn't mine, and they ghosted me. So I still go through the process, and we get it under contract, still expecting them to come back. And as we're getting closer to the end, they vanished, which is fine because from our perspective, it's still an investment property and it made sense. But, I always want to show them the courtesy because this was their deal.
Yeah.
So anyways, so we went in and ended up getting it under contract, ultimately closed. But before we dive into some of the other things, tell us what you saw when you first went to that property.
Just overall wasn't well maintained. I think the space that we were in was really indicative of the whole place. It was kind of that past its heyday. They really stopped putting any real money into the asset. It feels like probably 10 or 15 years. They at least had put in a new roof on it, which was nice, but we had light fixtures hanging kind of around the canopy.
Yeah,
and
let me go back 1 second. So this happened to be in a medical office condo. It was 2 stories. And so we had never bought into an office building that was a condo. So I had a lot of questions. I'm reviewing the documents, not really sure how things work. So I'm not afraid of it. I just didn't understand it. And so
we usually like to control the asset. So it's not in our wheelhouse to be kind of beholden to to other decision makers and having to play well in that same sandbox. So yeah, usually it's ours. We're going to control it and see and do what we want to do with it, which we like to improve. So we don't want to be, slowed down or have to go through any of those other processes.
So he's talking about bureaucracy and having to play well with others. We can, but we kind of move at Mach speed. When this entire building, 11 units, and we were buying 4 of those 11 units. It needed a lot of love and a lot of updating. And so one of the things that we really were focused on is in reading the documents, how does the voting work? Because we need to understand that, because we want to vote to keep improving this building. We know that as new owners in this building, we were going to have to pull money out of our own pocket towards the HOA to make these improvements, which we were willing to do. But we're only 4/11ths of the vote. So we still needed to figure out how that worked. So I'm reviewing the documents and everything else, and it was kind of interesting. We ultimately got through a lot of that, but there was a little bit of, now just to back up, these are medical office condos, so there are restrictions on this property that it has to be medically related. Now there was some loose language on the type of medical. So you could still be like a counselor, a psychiatrist, a dentist, an esthetician, health and wellness, hearing, anything related to the body and the mind was considered in these condo documents. Those were, but you could not put in,
clothing boutique or whatever.
Right. You couldn't put in a clothing boutique or things like that.
Maybe a like kind.
So anyways, so as long as you understand what you're getting into, and quite honestly, that also helps to protect the asset from a lot of randomness. Okay. So we knew what we were buying into. Well, we got pretty lucky. So while we're under contract, and this is not uncommon, we actually started to market the property, and 3 of the 4 spaces we leased out before we closed them. Yeah. So we're high-fiving each other.
Yeah.
So
now one took 2 spaces, didn't they?
Right.
Yeah. So we're 100% essentially lease going into closing.
Right. So, well, no, I'm saying 3 of the 4 spaces were leased. The last one, it took us another 6 months.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. So, but Don, why don't you talk a little bit about the condition of the property and some of the challenges that we ran into right away, especially as it related to dealing with the HOA?
Yeah. Overall, on the surface, right, as we got in, everything appears to be of the normal, just dated, right? Old floors, needs paint, needs some new fixtures in there, but everything pretty simple. And we get probably 3/4 of the way into this project. And all of a sudden, one of the last things you do, right, before you turn over a space like this, especially this dated, is we'd put in all new ceiling tiles. And we started noticing that these ceiling tiles are just getting soaked. And we're like, what's this coming from? Is there some kind of roof leaks happening? Is there HVAC? And lo and behold, all of the sewer lines that were feeding the second floor units, because our units are on the first floor, had all kinds of channel rot. All of these cast iron pipes were all rusted out from the inside out.
Now, the interesting thing is none of these pipes were for our units. Like Don said, this is all for the second floor. So we don't know how this works, because, if we have a plumbing issue in our units, we understand that we would have to pay for those, but this is affecting our units, but it's not for our units.
Correct. And initially, I don't think they had quite the understanding of it either, the HOA. And we're like, hey, this after reviewing the documents, because that's really the first thing you need to do is, hey, I think this is a common area issue, right? Their pipes, their sewer lines feeding the second floor units, not anything to do with ours. And okay, let's go to the condo docs. What's it saying? Okay, it is saying that anything beyond the fixture is the association's responsibility to fix. So we go, hey, we have all these issues right now. You guys got to look at this. And for some reason, it was in their minds that, no, that's yours. It's inside your space. It's like, technically it is inside our space, but it really isn't, right? Because it's above our ceiling, but below their decking. And
hold on, this is where I can be a jerk. Oh, it's my responsibility. How about I cap all these drains? You know,
we had to get there.
I don't need to replace these drains that actually don't service me. So don't push me.
No, and we had to
cap
say
everything.
You know? And that what was crazy, because you go in and you try to be, it's hard to, at least I'll say our style, my style, it's hard to go backwards. You always want to go into the situation with a little bit of a, hey, this is what we're dealing with, and see who the reasonable parties are that step up and want to weigh in and help. But they, for some reason, would not move and would not budge. And hey, this needs to be addressed. This needs to be addressed. This needs to be addressed. And it got very confrontational very quickly with, hey, just so you guys know, we're about to cap this plumbing. And then it pivoted. It was, I think, a realization there, as well as we're going to start fixing things and you're going to pay for it. That was the next step after that. It was once they still were slow playing it. And I just don't know if they weren't fully understanding it, getting in. We're
dealing with who moved my cheese type people. This property manager, you know, they just move at a snail's pace, and we have vacancy is the enemy of landlords. Here we have 3 of our 4 spaces leased up, and we have the ability to deliver it in a very timely fashion because we don't stop. Well, they want to slow it down, spend weeks analyzing, and we're like, well, this will take 3 days to fix. And so,
especially when it's vacant.
We don't even have somebody. We want to get all this done while it's vacant. The last thing we want are sewer drains above our tenants having issues. So we just say, you know what? Screw it. Replace what needs to be replaced. We'll worry about who pays for it later, because we need to bring our spaces into a functionality. So all that to be said is, so there's this bureaucracy in this condo association that we were not accustomed to. And
they weren't accustomed to us.
Or they weren't accustomed to us, right? And I think that there was a lot of gray area. And we also had, you know, we're dealing with other doctors that have been owners for such a long time. Sometimes when you own a space for a long time, you somehow think that your value of ownership, because you've owned it longer, is somehow greater than somebody else's. And I don't care if I buy it today, I'm still a full-fledged owner right now. I'm equal to you, regardless of whether I own it a day or 10 years. It does not matter. You may have more tribal knowledge, but we still have the same rights. And so we had to go in there. Now, I will tell you, I'll fast forward. How long have we had this? I can tell you.
2 years, 2.5 years.
We bought it in May 25th. Oh, goodness.
Happy anniversary.
2023. Yes. We are
2 days short of it.
2 days short of our second year anniversary. Now, I will tell you that while it started off with some contention, you know, we built a lot of bridges with our partners in the HOA. They're great people. And over the past 2 years, we've made a lot of improvements to the building. They all are now taking, I think, a greater pride of ownership. They're willing to put their money where their mouth is and improve the space. We're not getting everything that we want, but that's okay. We have to be good partners to them as well. And while Don and I always want to improve and make it the best it can be, we understand that everybody has a budget. And so we've got to work on that. And, you know, we even had to go through a process of, we had one doctor that was in default on his HOA fees, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And I just stepped up and said, you know, sorry guys, I'm not, because I got on the board and I just said, I'm not comfortable with extending more credit. You know, if he can't afford to be here, then he maybe should sell the unit. And he ultimately did. And one of the other doctors in the building ended up buying his space out, and he's going to put that on the market for lease as well. So, but anyways, all that to be said, over the past 2 years, we've made a lot of improvements to the building. It's now looking better. In fact, this week we just approved that the lighting that Don said has been hanging down. We just got some new lighting approved that'll be installed over the next couple weeks. Everything moves a lot slower than Don and I are used to, but that's okay. We're working within a new system. And so that's probably the biggest thing I wanted to share from an HOA standpoint is, you know, just make sure you understand that document, build bridges, get on the board, help the decision-making process is probably one of the biggest things. So you want to talk about some of the other issues you had?
Yeah. And I think you did touch on something that maybe didn't fully set into me kind of when it was happening was, like you said, it was really in this kind of gray area that I think that this board or these owners, like you were saying, had been there for so long. They just had never been approached with this kind of problem. So they really didn't know how to react to it. And then, as you're saying, building bridges, I think now the board really looks at us for a lot more guidance than I think when we first stepped into the fray. A lot of times, they're kind of always double checking.
I think we've earned a little bit of their, I don't want to use the term respect. I do think we have a mutual understanding that, one thing that Don and I are good at are these buildings. What they're good at is taking care of patients. What Don's great at is taking care of buildings. And so now we just are more collaborative in our efforts to, hey, listen, we're here to improve your assets that you own, including our assets that we own. We're here to improve those. We're not here to fight. We're here to lift all of our values in our asset.
Correct. And I think it was maybe 6 months or a year ago now. I had sat in a meeting, and they were talking about replacing certain other sections of plumbing, because now they're on the trajectory to replace all of the cast iron. And the original proposal was to go back and replace it in its current condition and position and location. And the buyer of those units you were just talking about was divulging during that meeting, hey, I'm going to renovate the space and change the layout.
Right.
So I was like, hey, just so you know, if you do that, the first phase, right, the repairs, the replacement, and then you change the location, it changes the whole equation. And you're going to be back in there again, which, we have to step in and sit there on behalf of the tenants as well, to where they would be back into our tenant space, making a mess, redoing plumbing, causing a lot more issues.
Well, and to Don's credit, we attempted unsuccessfully saying, guys, this is the right time when we don't have tenants in these spaces. This is the right time to replace all of this bad plumbing. And they would not have it at that time. Of course, now our tenants are moved in, and now we have to be more sensitive. So when you have vacant spaces, boy, that's a great time to fix everything. But again, we didn't have the credibility, and they didn't know us. So I think that, probably worked to our disadvantage. But what Don ended up doing is all of these spaces were just dated. He went in and redid all the painting, all the flooring, the ceiling tiles, really just updated the space, took a wall down, added a wall where it made sense, and just made it more functional space. So I'm going to talk about some of the financials. Are we done on the quick and dirty HOA?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would say that I think also was beneficial was reaching out kind of one-on-one. I know we'd reached out to the larger group that has medical office there, a professional group. And it's just like anything with bureaucracy, having good one-on-one relationships, it builds that rapport and allows you to get some things done that you may have ran into challenges with.
Right. Well, in fact, I'm going to touch on that in just a moment. So I'm going to run through the financials of this asset. Again, we're celebrating our 2-year anniversary in 2 days. So the purchase price was, we thought, pretty good. We didn't negotiate this. This is what the owner asked for, and this is what we agreed to. So it was $400,000. We put an earnest money deposit of $10,000 down. We had a 60-day due diligence and another 30 days to close. The total square footage of these 4 units was 5,450 square feet. Don invested $16,225 in plumbing repairs. And we also spent another $83,000 in overall upgrades. So we had about $100,000 in investment. We were able to secure 3 tenants for all 4 spaces. The base rent on all of those combined is around $96,000. The purchase price on a square foot basis was $73 a square foot. We put another $18 a square foot in renovation. So our investment was $92 a square foot. The NOI is $61,476. The cash on cash for this property was pretty robust because, it's about 100%. It was pretty dang good. So, as of today, we believe the value of this property to be $751,000, which is $137 a square foot. That's a $46 a square foot increase over our total investment. That's a dollar increase over the last 2 years of $252,000, and an increase of 50.55% from when we bought it, plus the cost of renovation. So for a very short term, this is a wildly successful property. It doesn't mean that we have taken any distributions yet. Have we taken distributions on this property?
I think we took one.
Did we?
Year.
Okay. So
towards the end of the year.
We typically wait till later on in the third year to make our distributions, but it's going pretty good. But what we want to do is we've got a good cushion in the bank account, because if the HOA decides to approve more improvements, we want to always step up and not do a capital call.
Which they have. Yeah, like we talked about, they started doing the additional plumbing. They've done some painting, the lighting. So I mean, they're doing it. So yeah, we're reinvesting.
Yeah. So we always have a slush fund ready to go and be deployed into the space. We've got 3 really good tenants. They all signed. I think they all signed 5-year leases. Mm-hmm. And so we couldn't be happier with this asset. Again, it sits right on the campus of a hospital. The hospital itself owns 2 of the units. One of the doctors owns 3 of the units. We own 4 of the units, and the other ones are owned by individuals. So it's been a learning curve, and I think a very positive situation for us as investors. And I think I've enjoyed the process.
Yeah, that one wasn't initially very, very frustrating, but I think now that things have settled down, it's honestly probably one of my favorites that we have. It's relatively quiet. I think the design of an HOA type building lends itself to be easier for us to manage. I know that because of the way things are metered, because of access, they're all designed to where individuals can kind of sustain on their own.
Why don't you talk about that, Don? So what does the HOA pay and manage versus what you have to do as a property manager for our tenants?
What do they take care? Really, they because they're triple net leases, they almost take care of everything. So
the HOA specifically,
the HOA. So they're taking care of the common area lighting. They're taking care of the common area cleaning as well. If there is any roof issues, which we really haven't seen anything, any of the exterior improvements, and then the accounting for the common area, because there's a common area house panel for the lighting and so on. If there's any landscaping issues, irrigation, all those things that typically are more even in triple net properties where we've had multiple tenants, we play a very active role. We're playing this kind of just hands-off approach because the HOA is managing typically what we take care of, and the tenants, because they're triple net, they're responsible for anything inside the units. So we at this point are really providing a more of a guidance, like you said, that we've evolved into, and as part of being owners as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's probably one of my favorites. The
lending on this was 75% loan to value. We had a pretty darn good interest rate at 6.1%, 20-year amortization, 5-year term. So our mortgage payment on this property is $34,668 a year. And of course, our annual rent is a triple net is $96,143. Our NOI is $61,000 and change. So not a bad asset. So every year, basically, we collect an extra $61,000 over our mortgage payment, and then we keep so much of that for improvements to the asset, and then the rest we now distribute once we have our base. So that's kind of the long and the short of that property. It's been really, really nice, and it's a great location within Pensacola.
Yeah, that's long-term location. I mean, fantastic. And one thing that is a little bit of a benefit to us, only from a cash flow management standpoint, we don't like you were touching on how things move a little bit slower, but it does make it a little bit easier for budgeting because we can forecast that, hey, they're going to be planning to make these repairs, and then it takes them longer to make the repairs.
We usually spend money before we have it. We are definitely fire, aim, ready type guys. The asset always comes first. And I'll figure out, even if I've got to loan the company money, I don't like things to sit. We believe our tenants deserve a good asset. If they're paying rent, they deserve to get the asset that we agreed to deliver to them. And so, and it also allows us typically to have less vacancy. And if we can have high occupancy and low vacancy, that is where we win as landlords.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Blue Dirt, where even idiots can make a killing in commercial real estate. Thank you. That's a wrap for this episode of Blue Dirt. We're here to help you build smarter, invest wiser, and create long-term value in commercial real estate, one solid foundation at a time. If you found today's insights useful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you know somebody who could benefit from these discussions, share Blue Dirt with them. Got questions or topics you'd like us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep digging deep, stay sharp, and remember, real value is built from the ground up. See you on the next episode.